I've been a winning poker pro for 7 straight years, and this video is my complete breakdown of the live poker strategy I use to stay consistent. These are the decisions, adjustments, and avoidable mistakes that matter most, especially if you feel like you play well sometimes, but can't turn it into steady results. I'm going to walk you through each part so you know what to focus on in your next session. Most poker players are making 6 mistakes that instantly tell the table they're the fish. The first mistake is going to be shown when I am dealt King 9 suited in the small blind. It folds all the way around to me in the small blind, and I will raise 3 extra blinds, making it $15 to go. Villain in big blind will be put it in a call. We go heads up to a flop of Queen 4 deuce, 2 hearts. Everything is playing normal so far, but we are about to see something happen that will indicate big blind is a fish. This is a very good flop from my hand with an overcard to the board, and I am also drawing to the king high flush. Overall for my range, however, this is not the best board for me. Because of this, I will check instead of finding a continuation bet. Villain is going to fire out a bet in position for 50% of the pot, making it $15 to go. This is completely fine, and sometimes here I can play a call. However, people in live poker love betting when check 2 in position. Instead of calling, I will find a check raise with having such a large amount of equity, making it $50 to go. I am not afraid to play a turn if my opponent continues. This time around, they will fold face up and show me pocket jacks. Do you see the mistake here? They played too passive and did not 3-bet me pre-flop. This hand is a pure 3-bet, and even though it is a very strong hand blind versus blind, Villain decided to just call. This tells us a lot about their 3-betting range. Also, they folded second pair to a check raise because the aggression against such a passive player will make them do crazy things. Yes, you should float jacks here because I would not always have a made hand. Please do not be this player at the poker table, as other players will target you very quickly. Next hand, we are going to see the second mistake almost instantly. You do not want to be this guy sitting in seat 1 at the table. This is a 1-3 game, and the $6 straddle has been on majority of the time, and they are playing short stacked. They have about $125 to $140, which is less than 50 big blinds at a 1-3 game. Also, if the straddle is on, they have less than 25 straddles, aka it is a tournament cash game for them. Fish tend to play short since they have plenty of fears with sitting deep at the table. Also, they may have only came to play with one buy-in and want the game to last as long as possible. Please do not do this next mistake we are about to see, as not only will it show you are the fish, but it will slowly cause you to bleed money in every poker session. This time, I am dealt King Jack offsuit on the button. It folds to cutoff, and they are going to limp for $5. I will raise it up 5x to $25. It folds around to them, and they will put in a call. We go heads up to a flop of 7-6-3 rainbow. Villain checks, and this is not the best board for my current holding, but people limp and call with so many random hands, I will still fire out a continuation bet, aka C bet, for $35. After a couple of seconds, my opponent puts in the call. We go to the turn, and it comes to Jack of clubs. Extremely good turn, as now I have top pair, top kicker with the backdoor flush draw coming in. Villain checks, and now we have a made hand. My opponent can still find plenty of calls with worse hands, such as 7x, a pair with a straight draw hand such as 6-5 suited or 4-3 suited, and a pair plus flush draw or straight plus flush draw holding. I will size up on the turn and double barrel for $100. They take a bit longer this time, but still put in a call. We go to the river, and it comes the 6 of spades. Villain checks, and with the board pairing, I will check back this time. Before they turn over the cards, here is the mistake. Please do not limp. It will cost you so much money in the long run, as they turn over 7-4 suited. They could have folded pre, but no, they decided it was better to limp and then call a raise to be in the worst spot in poker, out of position. Villain loses $160 chasing cards when they could have lost $0. Next hand, I will be dealt pocket fours in hijack. This time, the mistake will be post flop as I open 3x to $15. The villain in big blind puts in the call. We go heads up to a flop of 7-5-4, 2 hearts. They check, an extremely good flop for me, right? I hit bottom set, but a set is one of the most disguised hands in poker. We want to start building this pot as quickly as possible. I will c-bet here, making it $25 to go. After a couple of seconds, villain is going to fold. I hand my cards to the dealer calmly, but other people will make the mistake and be upset their monster hand won only $17. They expect to always win a large pot in this spot. You will see these players flip over their set in this spot and say, "Of course, this always happens to me when I have it," when it really is not the case. Having the correct mindset goes a long way when playing poker. It is even worse if they blame the dealer for not giving the other player a hand or a better board. Look for this player at the table because it is the exact opponent you want to play pots against. This time I am dealt ace-king offsuit and I will be in under the gun position. I will open 3x again, making it $15 to go. It folds around to hijack and they will call. It folds around to small blind and they call too, while big blind is going to fold. Notice both opponents are short stacked, but that is not the mistake this time as we are headed to a flop of king 8-4, 2 hearts. Small blind checks, and this is a perfect spot to play against two opponents short stack. I have top pair, top kicker, and decision making here is going to be extremely straightforward. Some will immediately continuation bet here, but you do not always have to. This time around, I will play a bit of defense with a check, preparing to check raise if my opponent bets in position. Remember, the first hand I did this with a draw, and now I am applying the same concept with a very strong made hand. Hijack will place a bet in position for $35, about 60% or so of the pot. Villain in small blind decides to put in the check raise and makes it $70 to go. With both players being so short and so much action happening, I am more than happy to 3-bet and go all in with ace-king. Hijack folds, and small blind will be coming along with the call. They turn over 8-5 suited, and here is the mistake. Do not play bad hands in small blind. It gets you into a lot of trouble and you will be out of position to the entire table every single hand. Just because a hand is suited does not mean you should call or have the odds to put money in. It is okay to fold your $2 and move on to avoid getting into complicated spots where you will have an inferior holding majority of the time. We agree to run it twice. The first run out brings a 7 of clubs on the turn and then a jack of diamonds on the river. The second run out brings a 6 of diamonds on the turn and a 9 of diamonds on the river. We win both boards and my opponent in small blind loses $280 instead of losing $2 in this position. Putting in a $2 blind is not an invitation to claim you are pot committed and can't fold. Next hand, I am dealt 10-7 suited and we are going to have some blind versus blind action once again. This hand is going to play out very differently than the previous one. Small blind, who has been overly aggressive today, is going to find a limp. I am going to raise it up, making it $40 to go. Villain will be putting in the limp raise, making it $160 to go. We are playing almost 150 big blinds effective, so I will be putting in the call. We go heads up to a flop of king jack 6, 2 clubs. Very good flop for me as I am drawing to the 10 high flush, which would be the third best hand possible. I also have some backdoors to runner straights as well. My opponent will find a c-bet for $110. Easy decision here. I put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes to 2 of clubs. I now have a flush and villain will not be slowing down here. They are finding the double barrel and size up on the turn, making it $350 to go. With them being very aggressive today, and in general, there is no reason to raise at all. I would just put in a call. We go to the river and it comes the 8 of clubs. Not the best river for me, as now if my opponent has the ace or queen of clubs in their hand, they will have a better flush. They will fire the triple barrel here and go all in. In this spot, you may feel you are beat, but our hand is just too good. I will put in a call, and here is another mistake. Over bluffing in a spot that is unnecessary. They turn over ace ten of hearts and could have easily given up on the turn without a club. I am going to have way more flushes in my range than my opponent, and they did not realize this in the moment. This was a gift as they bluff off well over $1,000. If you recognized any of these mistakes in your own game, don't brush it off, because these are the exact leaks that make low stakes players easy to spot. I made the low stakes poker blueprint as a free guide with 100 rules to help you clean those leaks up and start finding the players who are giving money away. Scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the pinned comment and I'll send it to you for free. There is one concept live poker players do not understand, and it makes the game way harder than it needs to be. In this video, I am going to break down exactly what it is and how you can use it to start making better decisions and winning more money right away. The concept is going to be illustrated right away when I am dealt King 8 suited in the under the gun straddle of a 2-5 game. My opponent in low jack is going to be opening 3.5x to $35. It folds to me, and I will put in a call. We go heads up to a flop of ace-6-5, 2 diamonds. This is an extremely good flop for my exact hand and my range as well, even though there is an ace on the board. Not being the pre-flop aggressor, I will start out with a check. My opponent is going to place an almost pot-sized wager, making it $65 to go. We are facing an extremely big bet here, which is not the most fun, but there are a lot of advantages we have on this board. We are drawn to the nuts, aka the best hand possible if we were to hit any diamond on the turn or the river. Also, the backdoor equity we have here is super important as well. Do you see it? We are able to turn a 7 to be open-ended for a straight, which will be the nuts very often, or even a 4 to give us 4 additional outs to a gutter straight draw. Lastly, keep in mind, just because your opponent fires a big bet on an ace-high board does not mean they have the ace. You may believe the bigger someone bets, the more they have it, but people at low stakes use all kinds of bet sizes in many situations. Because of this breakdown, we are going to apply the concept you need to understand and use more, and it is check raising more in your games. A check call line is way easier to play against compared to a check raise line because now we are taking over the aggression. It is not that the most aggressive poker player always wins the most, but more so well-timed and thought-out aggression will produce higher profits. I would check raise almost 4x their bet size, yes, this is very big, and make it $240 to go. After a couple of seconds, my opponent folds their hand. This next hand, we will have a different situation, even though I am in the straddle again with King 4 suited. Under the gun +1 raises $25. It folds to cutoff, and they put in a call. It folds to me in the straddle, and I will be calling too. This time, we are three-handed, headed to a flop of 5-3-5 rainbow. I will check, and the pre-flop aggressor is going to be placing a C bet, aka continuation bet, for $20. Cutoff is going to fold their hand. Now, this is a bit of a different situation because even though cutoff folded, this is a C bet multi-way and not a C bet heads up. In theory, my opponent should C bet this spot less, but in reality, people do not always make the appropriate adjustments for the amount of players in a pot. One factor that holds true is my opponent did RFI, or raise first in from under the gun, so they are going to have a tighter range. I will have to be crazy to check raise here with no made hand, right? This time, I do not even have a flush draw, but I do have backdoor equity to straights and flushes. Yes, it has to come runner, but my opponent will still have C bets that cannot defend a check raise. Also, I will have infinitely more 5x than my opponent for trips, and hitting a king at some point may end up being the best hand. Because of all these reasons, we will go for the check raise with our mediocre holding here and make it $65 to go. Preferably, we would want to fold in this spot, but unfortunately, my opponent is going to call. Yes, this is the risk we take sometimes when we use this concept, but all this means is we have two more streets of poker to play. We go to the turn and it comes the King of Hearts. Even though we hit the king here, we do have problems in the kicker category. Also, any king or ace coming on the turn are going to be much better for under the gun plus one's range than mine. Sometimes in poker, you have to respect someone's range and not play your exact hold'em, so I will check my option. Villain decides they will fire out a bet here and makes it $145 to go, about 66% of the pot. Things are feeling a bit scary, but this is okay. I have a pair, and we did not come this far to start folding now, as my opponent can bluff on this card. Even the most novice of players know if a king or ace comes here on the turn, they can have it. The key word is can, and it is a good enough reason to fire out a bet here, so I will continue. We go to the river and it comes the Jack of Clubs. This is a great river because now I have a good kicker with my top pair as the Jack will play. The heart flush draw from the turn also missed. I check my option. After a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to check back. I turn over my king four suited and my opponent will be mucking their cards. We win a big pot for $267. The main focus here though is finding the scary check raise on the flop with no made hand and being able to navigate the turn and river. The more you put yourself in these situations, the more experience there is to be gained for your poker game. Different situation once again, as we are going to be in a blind versus blind configuration. I am dealt king 9 suited in the small blind in a 2-5 game with no straddle. I will raise it up to $15. Villain in big blind will be put in a call. We go heads up to a flop of Queen Deuce 4 with 2 hearts. Here, many players would love to go for a c-bet always since they have a king high flush draw. We are technically drawing to the second nuts. To apply the concept again, we cannot be aggressive yet, so I will check. My opponent puts a bet of $15 in the pot, and this is exactly what I wanted. This is how you stay less predictable in poker when you don't always take the most obvious line. If we always bet when we have it, we will never have any hands when we find checks here. Also, ranges are very wide in a blind versus blind spot, so there is even a higher percent chance villain may not have a hand here and folds. I would check raise a little over 3x, making it $50 to go. After a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to fold and show pocket jacks. There are a lot of points to make here, but I want to focus on two mainly. First, I managed to take down this pot, making $30 without ever making my hand. I had a draw, and there is no guarantee I would have hit a heart or a king to beat my opponent on the turn or the river. Second, they folded a made hand to my check raise, which they should have found a call. Poker becomes easier understanding this one concept of check raising more, and it is more difficult for opponents to play against. They do not know how to defend properly in aggressive lines. In this next hand, we will be playing 5-10, and I will be dealt king 10 suited in low jack position. The concept will be used again, but this time it will not be on the flop. I opened 3.5x to $35 because there was an extra blind posted at the table. We will have two callers in cutoff and on the button. We are headed three ways to a flop of king 10-8 rainbow. This is a beautiful flop as I have top two pair, so there is not many hands I will be behind to. All the previous hands involved me never being the pre-flop aggressor, but now I am. I will find a c-bet for $40. Cutoff is going to call and the button is going to fold. We go heads up to the turn and it comes the 6 of diamonds. Beautiful turn as I now have additional equity to the second best hand possible with a king high flush draw. My opponent could have turned a straight with 9-7 suited, but it would be at a super low frequency. Because of this, I am comfortable firing a double barrel for $130. It takes them a little bit more time, but they still come along with the call. The river is where the hand becomes a lot more interesting as it comes the 10 of clubs. At this point, I have the nuts as my opponent is never going to have pocket kings here as they would 3-bet pre-flop. We can confidently eliminate this hand from our opponent's range. When you see that you have this full house on the river, where is your thought process going initially? Majority of the time people are thinking, I have the nuts, and what amount can I bet here to make sure my opponent always finds a call? I do not want to bet too big and then they fold too much. This is not how you should be thinking about this situation. We instead need to begin thinking about our opponent's range. What worse hands can we get called by if we decide to fire this triple barrel? What hands can our opponent bluff with if we decide to check? Which one of these options is going to net the most winnings in the long term for this situation? Let's further break this down. If my opponent has trips, we all are aware if I check, they will for sure put in a bet themselves. This is one portion of their range that will always try to get called by worse hands in my range. If they did have the 9-7 suited from the turn that did not decide to raise, they will for sure fire out a bet themselves as well. Villain can also have a set of 8s or 6s from the flop and turn they decided to slow play. Instead, they could have just been allowing me to bluff into them since they had the positional advantage. They could believe I am an aggressive player as well. Now, let's focus on bluffs. What if they had Queen Jack or Jack 9 suited? What if they had Queen Jack offsuit, as this is a hand live players would call in cutoff against an open because they love Broadway cards? If I bet, can these hands call? Of course not. If I check, however, these hands can sometimes bluff. They will not always bluff, but at least we have a chance to make more money from that portion of our opponent's range. Lastly, if I were to always bet, my opponent would sometimes only call with a weaker 10x holding rather than raise in position. We are sitting about $1,300 effective, and there is $460 in the pot. We want to give ourselves the best opportunity to play for stacks in this situation. Because of all the factors I mentioned, I will use the concept we have been talking about this entire video and check my option. My opponent is doing exactly what I wanted them to do and places out a bet for $350. I now have accomplished everything I wanted to here. I announced to the dealer I am all in as we want to get paid the maximum with the best hand. After about 30 seconds, villain will put in an entire buy-in $1,000 by putting in a call. I let them know I have King 10 suited and they fold their cards while letting the entire table know they had 10-9 suited for weaker trips. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you can give a like and hit the subscribe button. I am really close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. Also, comment below your favorite parts or strategies so far. Most poker players are making one mistake that's destroying their results without them even realizing it. I'll break down exactly how to correct it so you can start winning more consistently. This first hand is going to show the corrections you can make right away as I am dealt ace-jack offsuit in under the gun +1 position. The $10 straddle is on, so I will open 3x to $30. It folds around to the villain in the big blind and they will put in a call. The straddle is going to fold. We go heads up to a flop of 8-jack-4 rainbow. My opponent is going to check, and here comes the mistake you need to fix. You need to learn how to maximize your winnings and minimize your losses with top pair. It is one of the most common spots in poker we have to deal with. This first hand is simple so far with me having top pair, top kicker. I want to start building a pot with a strong hand, so I will find a C bet, aka continuation bet, for $50. Villain thinks about it for a couple of seconds and puts in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 5 of clubs. They check, and now this is where things start to become a bit more interesting. The turn brings in a club backdoor flush draw and also completes some straights that could be in my opponent's range, such as 7-6 suited and possibly 7-6 offsuit. My specific holding wanted to put money in on a flop, but now it is a good idea to turn down their aggression, so I will check back. We go to the river and it comes the 5 of hearts. They think about it for a couple of seconds and check. The pairing of the 5 is also a little bit scary since they could have a hand such as 7-5 suited and 6-5 suited that called with the gutter to the straight. However, there are still many hands we need to get called by with top pair, top kicker. Villain will still have a lot of Jack X hands such as King Jack, Queen Jack, Jack 10, Jack 9 suited, and maybe even Jack 7 suited. Also, they still have some pocket pairs such as 10s, 9s, 7s, and 6s that may not believe my bet check bet line. With so many hands in their range that will call, I will happily put in a river bet for $125. Too many times I see opponents play it passive here and check back their Ace Jack, King Jack, and Queen Jack, missing out on the river bet due to being afraid. After a couple of seconds, they put in a call. I turn over my Ace Jack and they are going to muck their cards. Let's move on to the next hand in a different situation where I am dealt Ace Queen offsuit in cutoff position. This time a player in low jack will limp, and after it folds to me, I will raise the limp with such a strong holding. I make it $25 to go. It folds to big blind and they will put in the call while the original limper will fold. We go heads up to a flop of Ace Jack King Rainbow. Villain checks and we are in a good spot again here with top pair best kicker. My opponent is short stacked with only 50 big blinds, so my goal is going to be to stack them this hand. Keep in mind, they would never have a hand as strong as Ace King because they would have 3-betted pre-flop. There are some other 2-pair combinations they can have, but it is more likely for them to have a pair of aces or another pair I am currently ahead of. As usual, poker is a game of range versus range. I will c-bet for $15. After a couple of seconds, they will put in a call. The turn comes the 5 of clubs. Villain checks and the plan is still the same here with such a strong hand. My opponent did not show any aggression on the flop with a check raise, so my hand will still be the best majority of the time. The club flush draw did come in on the turn, so I do have to worry about that. I also want to make sure that the sizing I choose on the turn allows me to go all in on clean rivers. I will size up here, placing out an overbet for $100. They take a bit longer this time, but eventually find the call. We go to the river and it comes the 10 of hearts. Villain checks and now we have the nuts, aka the best hand possible. It is a fortunate run out and we only have one option here. They have a little over 50% of the pot and this is not the time to bet small. I want to make sure I stack my opponent, so I grab a stack of chips, forcing them all in. They do fold rather quickly, but the focus here is maximizing your winnings from the flop all the way to the river with top pair, and we did just that. Now, what if we hit our top pair on the flop, but face aggression that we have not seen so far? How do we handle this situation? We will see now as I am dealt Ace Queen suited in under the gun position. I open 3 extra blinds to $15. We will see our first multi-way pot as opponents in low jack, cutoff, small blind, and big blind put in the call. We are 5-handed headed to a flop of Ace 2-4, 2 diamonds. It is an okay flop as I do have top pair, top kicker, but the board is connected with a diamond flush draw as well. With so many people in the hand, I must play more passively than I have in the previous hands. It is on small blind to act and they will donk lead with a bet of $40. If you are not familiar with a donk lead, it is when someone who is out of position to the original aggressor pre-flop places a bet before they have a chance to act. Big blind is going to fold, and in this spot, it is not the time to start raising, so I will put in a call. Both of my opponents to my left are going to be folding. With villain and small blind donk betting here, especially into 4 other players, this is showing a massive amount of strength. People never do this without a strong hand. Villain can have pocket deuces or 4s for a set, 5-3 suited for the nut straight, or even some 2 pairs in their range currently. There is also a flush draw out there which my opponent can be leading as well, even though this is less common in this multi-way situation. We go heads up to the turn, and it comes the king of clubs. Ideally, we would want them to slow down, but they would be firing out another bet on the turn. This time they size up with almost a pot-sized wager, making it $125 to go. I am a bit worried at this point, and honestly, you can begin making some arguments with folding at some frequency here. This time though, I will continue and put in a call. We go to the river, and it comes the seven of spades. Ranges have become extremely narrow at this point, and villain will not be slowing down. The triple barrel will happen as they place out a bet of $275. At this point, it is time to minimize my losses with only having top pair. You can try to make an argument for the flush draws missing and also no bad turns or rivers, but this is just not how it works. When an opponent shows strength at lowest stakes by leading multi-way, they just have it. I will happily take my top pair, top kicker, and fold because I am always going to be beat here. Different situation again, as now I will not be the aggressor pre-flop with Jack 10 suited in the straddle. Villain and under the gun will open $35 and it will fold to me. I will defend and put in a call. We go heads up to a flop of Jack 8-6, 2 diamonds. Now it is a top pair weak kicker situation, and I will check. Villain will find a C bet, but it is a very small one for $15. No point in starting to raise here. I will just be putting in a call. We go to the turn, and it comes the 8 of hearts. This is a really good turn for my range and not my opponents. If you think about it, they will only have ace 8 suited and king 8 suited from an under the gun open. This means ace 8 and king 8 of clubs or spades. I do not see them having queen 8 suited often, but it could be in someone's range if they are a bit loose. I will check the turn, and after a couple of seconds, my opponent checks back. We go to the river, and it comes the 3 of hearts. Being out of position and in the straddle, the goal has been to play passive and a bit of defense with my top pair weak kicker. Now, at this point, based on how the hand played out, some may think it is okay to check here. This will not generate the most winnings, and it is better to place out a wager. There is still hands in my opponent's range that can still call, and this will include non-pair hands such as a stubborn ace high. Ace high will always find a check back here otherwise. I will not place the biggest bet here. I just make it $35 to go. Villain goes into the tank against my bet size. After almost half of a minute, they finally put in a call. I turn over my Jack 10 suited, and they will mark their cards. If you're missing thin value spots like this or paying off too much when the story changes, you're leaving real money on the table every session. The Low Stakes Poker Blueprint is a free guide with 100 rules for betting thinner, losing less in bad spots, and making better decisions in the live games you're already playing. Scan the QR code on screen or grab it from the pinned comment for free. There is one move most poker players know, but they do not use it the right way. And it is something that has made a huge difference in my results. In this video, I am going to break down exactly what it is and how you can use it to start winning more money today. The move will be seen post-flop when I am dealt ace-10 offsuit in under the gun position. Blinds are 1-3 with a $6 straddle on, and the max buy-in for the table is only $300. I will open 2.5x to $15. It folds all the way around to the straddle, and they will put in the call. We go heads up to a flop of queen 9-3, 2 hearts. My opponent is going to check, and this board is very good for my range and my exact hand. I will have a lot of strong queen X hands, and having the 10 of hearts is given backdoor equity to straights and flushes. I will continuation bet, aka C bet, for $20. After a couple of seconds, my opponent puts in the call. We go to the turn, and it comes the Jack of diamonds. My opponent checks, and this is a very good turn as now I am open-ended to the nuts, aka the best 5-card hand possible with the board. With villain being so short here, I would not want to double barrel and then they go all in. Checking back is the preferred option as I get to realize my equity without this additional risk. We go to the river and it comes the King of Hearts. My opponent will check again, and now it is finally time to implement the move most poker players know. This is a beautiful river as I have the nuts straight, but not necessarily the nuts due to the flush draw completing. Where does your thought process go in this spot? Should we bet even though the flush came in? Or should we check back? If we do bet, what size is going to generate the most winnings long term? We can bet small, medium, or large, but which one would you use? To break this down further, I have a very important card in my hand, and it is the 10 of hearts. By having this card, it would be impossible for my opponent to have flushes containing the 10 of hearts. Because of this, I can for sure go for a bet because there are many worse hands I can get called by. People at low stakes poker just do not like to fold and will find a call with top pair, two pair, and a 10 for a straight. There is $74 in the middle and my opponent has $110 behind. It's time for the move that makes me win at poker, and it's maximizing your winnings by going all in. I announce to the dealer I am all in, and my opponent will think about it for a couple of seconds. Fear needs to go out of the window when performing this move, and you need to understand what it is appropriate to use based on ranges, your current made hand, and many other factors. My opponent calls the 1.5x pot over bet all in. I showed the nuts straight and they would be folding their hand. We made the most money possible by going for it all on the river. This next hand, we will see the move again, but this time in a different situation in a 2-5 game where I am dealt ace-king offsuit in under the gun position. I will open 3x, making it $15 to go. It folds to my opponent in hijack and they 3-bet to $50. It folds all the way back around to me, and this is the time once again poker players have a bit of fear, especially with this holding. Ace-king is a very strong hand, and in order to generate the most winnings with it, we need to be aggressive. We are 100 big blinds effective, and I am more than happy to go for a 4-bet here. There are two sizes we can use in this spot. This time around, I will apply the move again and gladly announce to the dealer I am all in pre-flop. It only takes a couple of seconds and my opponent will be folding. We managed to win 11.5 big blinds or $57 without ever seeing a flop. Next hand, we will attempt to apply the move again post-flop in a 5-10 game with a $20 straddle on as I am dealt 6-4 suited in small blind. I open 3x to $60. Opponents in big blind and the straddle will be put in the call. There are 3 of us headed to a flop of 6-4-2, 2 diamonds. Extremely good flop as I have top 2 pair. I will only be behind to 5-3 suited for the nut straight and also sets. The most likely set will be pocket deuces, and it is almost impossible for them to have 6s or 4s due to the combinations being left in the deck. Most people would c-bet here, but being out of position to 2 players, I would take a more passive route and start out with a check. Big blind is going to check 2, and the straddle will find a bet in position for $100, about 50% of the pot. This is completely fine, and we would never just put a call in here, giving big blind very good odds to hit their hand on the turn. We will go for the check raise, making it $320 to go. Big blind is going to call after a couple of seconds. Even though the straddle put out a bet, they are going to fold their hand. We are heads up going to the turn, and it comes the 6 of hearts. This is the best turn possible as we now have the nuts. Let's think about hands my opponent will have in their range. They can still have 5-3 suited for a straight, a 6 for trips, a diamond flush draw, and maybe a straight flush draw like king 5 of diamonds, ace 5 of diamonds, etc. We want to allow our opponent to continue with all of these hands in position. With having the nuts, we do not have to bet very big here. We will go for a very small wager of only $270. My opponent goes into the tank for about 20 to 30 seconds and finally puts in the call. We go to the river and it comes the queen of diamonds. Now at this point, my opponent can still have the hands I mentioned on the turn, but their flush draws are complete. This is very important because now there are even more worse hands we can get called by when we bet. The question comes in again: what size should we use here on the river to maximize our winnings? One thought I want you to never have here is, I want to bet a size that I know for sure my opponent will always call. When you start out with this thought process, you will be leaving a lot of money on the table. Based on my breakdown, you think your opponent is going to fold trips, a straight, or the made flush? They also would never fold a full house with pocket deuces either. They decided to trap by letting me bet into them. Stop betting small sizes and use the obvious size that makes me win at poker. I announced to the dealer that I am all in for $1,530, a pot size bet. My opponent goes into the tank again for about a minute, but this is okay. In this moment, they are slowly but surely convincing themselves they cannot fold their hand. Finally, they put in a call and I turn over the best hand possible. My opponent mucks their cards and says they had 10-9 of diamonds. All in is the most obvious move you need to do more at the poker tables. Different situation as we are dealt pocket kings on the button in a 2-5 game with a $10 straddle on. Cutoff will open 3x to $30. I will 3-bet on the button for $100. The straddle will be put in a code 4 bet for $325, and it folds back around to me. You may be worried about aces, but kings is the second best hand mathematically pre-flop, and we have to go with it. We cannot fold to 4 bets, so I will be going all in for $1,000. My opponent puts in the call. It will come king 3 queen with 2 hearts on the flop. The turn is the 10 of diamonds, and the river is the 7 of diamonds. I was the last aggressor, so I turn over my set of kings first. My opponent will fold their hand and we would take down the $2,000 pot. For this next hand, I am dealt 10-8 suited on the button in a 5-10 game. The end of this hand may surprise you because it would be completely different than the previous hands covered. The straddle has not been on, but for this hand, it randomly is and causes me to be slightly short. I am on the button and I will open 2.5x to $50. Small blind will find a 3-bet here, making it $150. It folds back around to me and I will be putting in the call. We go heads up to a flop of 9-2-3, 2 hearts. It is an okay flop as we have some backdoor equity to flushes and straights. Villain is going to make a c-bet here for $100. The size is a little less than 1/3 of the pot, so I will be happy to continue. I put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 6 of diamonds. Extremely good turn as I have a straight draw to the best hand possible if I river a 7 and a 10 high flush draw to go along with it. This hand has been very different because we have been in defense mode in position instead of being the aggressor pre-flop. Villain will double barrel and place out a bet of $250. The odds I am getting are just too good with the sizing being 50% of the pot. I put in a call again. We go to the river and it comes the jack of clubs. Many people here think instantly, why can't I ever hit my hand in a big pot? I never get there. Or I am so unlucky. I, on the other hand, am thinking, well, I had the opportunity to realize all my equity in this 3-bet pot. It is all right, and if they bet, I get to fold and move on to another hand. I am also thinking if they check, what are my options? This is the thought process you should have in this spot as you are playing poker. Villain does slow down their aggression and checks the river. Now I am already prepared because I thought about what my options were in advance instead of being upset at the run out. In this spot, if we check, we can never win with 10 high. Unfortunately, we just do not have showdown value here. Every time before this hand, we went all in with a made hand to maximize our overall winnings. This is a different situation, but the same all-in rule will apply. Bluffing is another way to win the most money at the poker table. We must fire out a bet and it cannot be a small one. We must turn up the aggression, put our opponent in a tough spot, and make sure we bet a size that makes them fold. I will be going all in on the river for $1,030 to make my opponent extremely uncomfortable. They do tank for well over a minute, but finally find a fold. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you can give a like and hit the subscribe button. I am really close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. Also, comment below your favorite parts or strategies so far. There is one strategy low stakes poker players need to use to crush their games, and it is something I use in every live session. In this video, I am going to break down exactly what it is and how you can use it to start winning more money today. This first hand is going to demonstrate the strategy, and I will be dealt Ace King offsuit in cutoff position. The max buy-in is $500 and the straddle will be on. I open 2.5x to $25. It folds to my opponent in big blind and she will put in the call and the straddle will fold. We go heads up to a flop of King 5-6, 2 diamonds. My opponent checks, and with top pair, top kicker, I am looking to build the pot as quickly as possible. There are plenty of hands she will call, such as any King X, 6x, 5x, flush draws, gutters, and open-ended straight draws. We will be ahead of all of these hands. I will c-bet, aka continuation bet, $35. After a couple of seconds, my opponent puts in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 4 of clubs. She checks again, and this is a very interesting turn card. I have two options where I can slow down by checking, or I can still double barrel. She will not always have a straight here with 8-7, and there are still plenty of worse hands I can get called by that I mentioned on the flop. Also, this particular player would not have 3-2 or 7-3 suited in their range. I place a wager of $95 on the turn. The strategy is going to finally come into play when, as the dealer is counting out my chips, she check raises to $225. Now, let's break this down. First, she manages to check raise 2 seconds after I place my bet. This is extremely strong and is almost never a bluff. She already had in her mind she was going to raise even before I decided to barrel the turn. Second, are there any bluffs she can have with a check raise that is slightly above 2x at this stack depth? Does she always have a better hand than my top pair best kicker? Yes, she does. She either has a straight, set, or some sort of 2 pair. Third, check raising the turn after getting double barreled out of position is one of the most underbluff spots in poker. If this happens to you, just be prepared to let your hand go because you will be beat. You must learn to fold more in your poker games. Hero folding is much more valuable than these fancy hero calls you see. I will happily fold my top pair, top kicker, as I know for sure I am always beat. Different situation and position, I will be on the button with Queen Jack offsuit. The blinds are 2-5 this time. Hijack is going to limp and cutoff is going to raise it up to $15. Hijack has been limping a lot, so there is a high percentage chance of making it to the flop in position with my holding. I call and it folds back around to Hijack, who is going to come along as well. This time we will be multi-way as we head to a flop of Queen 6 deuce rainbow. Hijack, the limper and not the person who raised, is going to donk bet for $25, about 50% of the pot. If you are not familiar with what a donk bet is, it is when a player takes the betting lead when they were not the previous aggressor. Since they limp called pre-flop, this fits the criteria of a donk bet. Try your best to not do these bets, but you should learn how to play against them when others do it. Cutoff folds, which is great as I now get to be heads up. I put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 7 of spades. Billing continues on the turn with a bet of $65. This is getting a bit alarming at this point, but with top pair decent kicker, I can't fold yet. Also, the 7 of spades should not have changed much, so I call again. We go to the river and it comes the 6 of spades. The board has now paired and the backdoor flush draw came in. Even with all of this, my opponent is finding a triple barrel and bets again for $175, a 75% pot bet roughly. Top pair decent kicker became worse and worse as the hand went on. My opponent is showing a massive amount of aggression when this is not a clean run out. You cannot be attached to top pair when someone is firing bets into you. So, for all of these reasons, I would gladly fold my hand, knowing that I have much better hands in my range to call with. Try your best to never be attached to your hand and understand you can always fold and pick a better time to put your chips in the middle. Now we will have a pocket pair as I have pocket tens in under gun plus one position. The hand starts off weird with under the gun opening to $40, a 4x open since there is no straddle on. I decide to go for the 3 bet and raise it up to $120, a smaller size due to the 4x open and specific player. It folds around to small blind and they will code 4 bet, re-raising it again to $250. Under the gun folds, and at this point, I am up against a very strong range. It is only 2x my 3 bet though, and we are playing almost 150 big blinds effective in position, so I will continue with a call. We go heads up to a flop of 8-7-3 with 2 hearts. This is a good flop having an overpair to the board and some straight draw and backdoor flush potential. Villain puts out a bet of 150. We cannot go anywhere yet. I put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 9 of spades. Extremely good turn as I pick up an open-ended straight draw. My opponent finds a bet again on the turn and makes it $330. Very hard to start folding with so much equity and an overpair, so we will still put in the call. We go to the river and it comes the 2 of diamonds. My opponent announces they will be all in for $830. Finally, the hand has shifted gears and I start to think about my options. As I said before, to start this hand, villain's range is very strong. Think about it. Under the gun opened 4x and I 3 bet versus under the gun's massive open. So this makes my range super strong against theirs. Even after all of this action, villain in small blind somehow manages to re-raise it against 2 very strong ranges. After we go post flop, they manage to bet on every street without any resistance. Yes, their sizing on river is not the biggest bet, but this does not mean I have to call. Think about it. What do we beat here? My opponent would somehow have to find a bluff with ace king because this is about the only hand I win against in this configuration. They can still have pocket aces, kings, and sometimes queens. I personally do not believe they even have ace queen suited here often enough because of how tight players are with 4 betting in this configuration. Yes, I committed a lot of chips to this pot, but that does not mean I am committed and forced to call. Try your best to never have this perspective and call for these reasons. You can always find a fold, and I would do just that with my pocket tens with no regrets. Completely different situation for the strategy will be shown as I am dealt King Jack suited in under the gun position. The straddle will be on, so I open 2.5x to $25. It folds to the blinds, and both big blind and the straddle will be put it in the call. We are 3-handed, headed to a flop of King Jack 7, 2 spades. Extremely good flop as we have top 2 pair, and we are only going to be behind to pocket sevens. Kings would have 3 bet pre-flop, and with 2 jacks already in play, it's going to be extremely unlikely any opponent has the one combination of it left in the deck. Even though I am the pre-flop aggressor, my opponent is going to donk the flop for $35. The straddle will fold, and we do not want to just call with such a strong made hand. We want our opponent to call with all the random hands they would donk with, such as random spades, queen 10, King X, and some combo draws. I will raise in position more than 3x, making it $125 to go. After a couple of seconds, they will be put in the call. We go to the turn and it comes the 8 of hearts. They check and the hand starts to become a bit more interesting. At first, you may be scared of seeing the 8, but let's break this down. How much 10-9 does my opponent have? They should only have 10-9 of spades or 10-9 of clubs due to it having a backdoor flush possibility from the flop. Sometimes they can have 10-9 offsuit, but it should still at least contain a spade. We will be behind at a low frequency here, but majority of the times we will still be ahead. There are still way more hands we are ahead of and worse hands we need to get paid from. Because of this, I will happily bet again on the turn for $300. They tank for about 30 seconds or so and finally come along with the call. We go to the river and it comes the 5 of spades. Villain does not check immediately like the previous streets. After a little bit, they donk jam for almost the size of the pot. With the front end flush draw completing, this is not a fun spot. We have to think about the entire line that just occurred. My opponent leads the flop, indicating they most likely have a flush draw, as many people do at low stakes. They proceed to call my raise in position and then tank call my huge turn bet. Then their aggression comes back when they donk all in on a flush completing card. Do you think in this line a human being is capable of bluffing? What bluffs do they really have here? They are very non existent in this spot, so now we move on to hands that we can beat. Would any worse two pair take this line, or would the money have gone in already on the flop or the turn? Is there any strong made hand we can beat? Two pair wouldn't do this, and the only hand they are telling us they have is a flush. Also, Big Blind has the range advantage with having more flushes than we do. After this very thorough breakdown, we can conclude I am going to always lose this spot, so I will confidently fold my top two pair. If you want to win at low stakes, you need to stop turning every big river bet into a hero call test. The low stakes poker blueprint is a free guide with 100 rules for spots like this, including when to value bet, when to fold strong hands, and when low stakes players just are not bluffing enough. Scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the pinned comment and I'll send it to you for free. Beginners lose at live poker because they do not know which spots are costing them money. And these are the 3 rules I always come back to. In this video, I am going to break them down so you can use them in your game today. The first rule is going to be illustrated when I am dealt King Queen suited in the under the gun straddle at this 5, 10, 20 game. Under the gun +1 is going to open 3x to $60. A player in low jack is going to call. It folds to the button and they call as well. In this spot with King Queen suited, where is your thought process going? Beginners will take the passive route and put in a call here, but there is a much better option we can do. This option allows you to be more aggressive and put your opponents in very tough spots. You need to re-raise or 3-bet more. This is one of the rules that when beginners finally learn how and when to implement it, their winnings at the tables increase dramatically. I am going to re-raise big here, making it $340 to go. Sometimes we can take down all the dead money in the middle right now, and other times we may see a call, but it is very rare for all players to continue. It is much easier to beat your opponent in a heads-up pot rather than trying to beat 3 different people in a multi-way pot. Under the gun +1 is going to fold, low jack puts in the call, and the button will lay it down. This is a much more manageable spot as we are now only heads up going to a flop of 5, 7, 7, 2 clubs. If you notice, the opponent who called was a short stack to start the hand. With having 2 overs and drawing to a king high flush, we will put in a C bet or continuation bet. There is about $800 in the middle, and they only have $300 behind. I am more than happy to place out a stack of $100 chips, putting my opponent all in. After a couple of seconds, they fold. Sometimes I would not hit my hand on the turn or the river, but it is much easier being aggressive with my current holding against one opponent instead of three. The next hand we will see the rule applied is when I am dealt ace-jack suited in small blind position. Hijack is going to open $15 at this 2-5 game, and cutoff will put in the call. It folds to me, and this is a spot where we can implement a re-raise again. Why play out of position against two players when we can take over the aggression and sometimes win the pot right now? Also, being the pre-flop aggressor out of position is an easier situation to navigate than being out of position and being at the mercy of your opponents. Calling in small blind too much is one of the biggest problems I see that causes beginners to lose, so make sure to re-raise more, as I will be making it $120 to go. After a couple of seconds, hijack folds and cutoff lays it down as well. We take down about $35 and did not even have to play post flop. Next hand, I will be dealt ace-king suited on the button. This time we are in position with a very strong hand. Under the gun +1 is going to open 5x to $25. It folds to cutoff and they call as well. Sometimes people become scared with ace-king because they believe it is just a drawing hand. If we were aggressive out of position, we need to do the same in position as well to put the pressure on our opponents. Even against the 5x open, I would gladly put in a 3-bet and make it $125. As we have seen before, sometimes we have to play post flop, but being in position with one of the best hands in poker, there is no need to be worried. We get to control the dance and the action as the hand progresses. Under the gun +1 will put in the call, and cutoff is going to fold. This is okay since playing against one opponent is easier than two. We go to a flop of king 7-7 rainbow. My opponent checks, and this is a very good flop for me. The board is dry and I have top pair, top kicker. I will put in a c-bet for $100. After a couple of seconds, they fold, but keep an eye on how much money was won during the hand by re-raising. Also, maybe cutoff had a hand such as Queen 7, 10-7, or 9-7 suited that they wanted to see a flop with, but did not want to pay $125 for it. 3-bets prevent our premium holdings from being cracked. We will see the next rule when I am dealt ace-7 suited in hijack position. The max buy-in is $500 at the table and the $10 straddle is on. My opponent in low jack will put in a call for $10. Beginners sometimes look down and see this hand thinking they just want to call as well to join the party for a cheap price. You have to understand there are still multiple players to your left who may raise it up, and now you must pay more to see the flop. Also, what if they go for a very big size given bad odds and now you can't call, so you lose your $10? Instead of limping, there is a much better play we can do. The second rule comes in and it is very straightforward. Stop limping and raise limpers. You never want to be villain in low jack. This is a sign of weakness and people will pick up on it. Yes, sometimes people limp strong hands once in a while, but majority of the times they do not have anything to continue with. I will raise the limper, making it $50 to go. It will fold all the way back to the original limper and they will fold their hand. Not only do we take down their $10, we also win the small blind, big blind, and the straddle. We will make $27 by being the more aggressive person pre-flop. Next hand, I am dealt pocket nines in under the gun +1 position. Under the gun will start out with a limp and I will gladly raise it up to $25. This time the hand will play out a bit different as it folds the big blind and they decide to come along with the call, and under the gun calls too. Now we are multi-way with pocket nines, but keep in mind, we are still the aggressor. My opponents must respect that as we are headed to a flop of 8-7-8 rainbow. If we limped nines and the entire table limped in two, odds are someone is going to have trips with an 8. Now we are in a great spot with an overpair to the board. Big blind will check and under the gun checks as well. We have managed to put ourselves in an excellent spot by being in position to both opponents. Position plays an important role at the table. I will put in a C bet of $50 as we would never want to check here and allow an overcard to hit the turn. After a couple of seconds, big blind is going to fold and the original limper is going to be laying it down. The next rule is going to be illustrated when I am dealt King 10 offsuit in under the gun position. We are six-handed and I open 3x for $30. It folds to the button. They will put in a call and the big blind comes along as well. We are three-handed headed to a flop of King 10 deuce, 2 diamonds. Big blind checks and this is an extremely good flop for my hand. I have top 2 pair and am only going to be behind to pocket deuces and pocket tens. Nobody in this hand will have pocket kings since they did not re-raise pre-flop, so we are able to eliminate it from their range. I will c-bet here for $30. Button decides to put in the call and big blind is going to be laying it down. We go heads up to the turn and it comes the 9 of hearts. Now the hand gets a bit more interesting. My hand is still very strong, but being out of position, do I always want to bet here? My opponent can have queen jack suited and sometimes queen jack offsuit if they play it in this spot. I will respect my opponent's range and slow down by putting in a check. Sometimes in poker, you have to know when to switch from offense to defense. They do think about it for a little bit, but they will check back. We go to the river and it comes the 2 of hearts. This is where the rule is finally going to come in. Let's think about our opponent's range here. Do they ever have queen jack anymore? They will not because queen jack will always bet the turn with 2 flush draws on the board. Now my hand is starting to look better. The 2 of hearts does come on the river and for this card to be bad, they would have to have a 2 for trips. People tend to not play much offsuit deuces, so it would have to be suited. My opponent would need exactly ace-2 suited to be ahead here, which is not many hands in the deck. The last part of this hand is the backdoor flush does come in on the river. Beginners tend to worry about this and want to check, but once again, I do not have any problems here with it. The rule is you need to bet when you have it. Sometimes poker is simple and you need to stop thinking about the hands you lose to and instead think about the range of hands you can get called by that you beat. My opponent can have a pair of kings from the flop as well as second pair with a 10. They can even have queen 9 or jack 9 suited with a straight draw that picked up third pair on the turn. All of these holdings are worse than our 2 pair and you may ask yourself why I included third pair. It is because sometimes people just do not know how to fold and believe people are bluffing. After this breakdown, I will put in a bet on the river because I have it, aka 2 pair and throw $100 in the middle. My opponent does think about it for a bit, but ultimately puts in the call. I turn over my 2 pair and they will mark their cards. For this next hand, I am dealt pocket 8s in the big blind. Low jack is going to open 4x to $20. It folds to me in big blind and I put in a call. We go heads up to a flop of 5-8-6 rainbow. I have top set on a rainbow board and this is going to be the best hand possible, aka the nuts. Why? It is because low jack would never have 7-4 suited in their opening range of 4x and almost never have 9-7 suited unless they are a maniac. I check since I am not the pre-flop aggressor and my opponent will confirm they did not flop the straight when they check back. We go to the turn and it comes the 10 of clubs. The backdoor flush draw is now there and we are going to start applying the same rule, bet when you have it. I will place out a wager for more than a pot, making it $75 to go. It only takes a couple of seconds and my opponent puts in the call. We go to the river and it comes the 5 of spades. I still have the essential nuts as I am only losing to pocket tens. Simply put, we must use the rule again and just bet when you have it. Do not try and get cute here by checking and slow playing. Hoping for your opponent to bet and do the heavy lifting for you is not how you become a profitable poker player. You must put in the money yourself. I will place another bet on the river for about 250, more than what's in the pot. My opponent goes into the tank. This is fine because at least they are considering calling. A minute goes by and they put in a call. I turn over my pocket eights for a full house and my opponent folds their hand. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you can give a like and hit the subscribe button. I am really close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. Also, comment below your favorite parts or strategies so far. There are two poker hands that everyone plays wrong. The problem isn't the cards, it's how people play them. In this video, I'm going to show you the most profitable way to play these two hands so you can start using it today. The first hand is going to be the pocket pair almost everyone hates to see when they look down, pocket jacks. I, on the other hand, love seeing it because I know it is an extremely good hold-in and you just have to know how to maximize your profits with it. I am in low jack position in this 5-10 game and the $20 straddle is on, so I will open 2.5x to $50. Notice my opening size and realize I did not try to go 5x or 6x because I am scared of a bad flop with a middle high pocket pair. If a bad board comes, we will navigate accordingly. Villain and hijack is going to 3-bet to $130, and then villain on the button is going to come in with the 3-bet cold call. It folds back around to me, and this is where I see people play the hand wrong again. I am in low jack, and if I put in a call here, I would be in the worst position in poker, and that is out of position. Not only will it be to one player, it would be to two players. It is extremely hard for anyone at the table to play in a spot like this. So this is why I'm going to get a bit more creative with this so-called bad pocket pair and go for a 4-bet all the way up to $460. After a couple of seconds, hijack is going to fold and button folds as well. Button's range is not going to be able to defend against my 4-bet almost always, so this is why once hijack folded, I knew I was in the clear. Pocket jacks is a hand that calls for aggression if you want to generate the most winnings with it. This time I would be dealt pocket jacks in a different position, the big blind. It folds to the button and they will raise it 3x the blinds to $30. Small blind folds and it is time to be aggressive again with my pocket pair. This hand is too strong, even though some of you may not believe it, to just put in a call here and take it to a flop. I will go for a 3-bet here, raising it up to $140. This time we will be playing post flop as villain will be putting in the call. We go heads up to a flop of 8-4 deuce 2 spades. Extremely good flop for jacks as I haven't overpaired to the board. There is already a lot of money in the pot as well since I 3-bet pre-flop. There are plenty of hands in my opponent's range that will call here, such as pocket 9s, 10s, and some lower ones such as 7s, 6s, 5s, etc. They will have some floats as well with flush draws, any pair to the board, and some single spade hands such as ace queen with the ace of spades or king queen with the king of spades. There are a lot of worse hands I'm going to be called by here, so I will fire out a C bet, aka continuation bet, for $140. After a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to put in the call. We go to the turn and it comes the 6 of spades. With jacks without a spade, I just cannot continue betting here on such a scary card. Yes, my opponent does not always have to have the flush, but I just cannot keep blindly putting money in the pot here out of position. I will slow down and check my option. I would prefer villain to check, but if they do bet, we will have to evaluate the situation based on their bet size. After a couple of seconds, villain does decide to check back. We go to the river and it comes to Jack of Hearts. Now I have top set and should have the best hand almost always. Poker players are just not checking a flush back here often, and if they did randomly decide to check back a made set just in case, I now have them beat. I can also still get called by a lot of stubborn pocket pairs in their range as well as a made pair from the board. Being able to get called by so many worse hands, I am going to fire out a bet on the river for $400. After a couple of seconds, my opponent puts in the call. I turn over my set of jacks and they muck their cards. Once again, by being aggressive with the 3-bet pre-flop, I was able to generate the most winnings. Make sure you stop being scared with pocket jacks and start putting more money in when the situation calls for it. The second hand that everyone plays wrong is going to be one people consider a drawing hand in poker. I, on the other hand, consider it a premium that has generated me more winnings than I can remember once I finally learned how to play it correctly. We will see multiple situations with Ace King, and for this first one, I will be in cutoff position. It folds to hijack and they will open 3x to $30. Passive play will get you nowhere with Ace King, so you should already know where this is headed as I 3-bet to $100. Instead of allowing someone else to 3-bet squeeze behind me or button call and putting me out of position, I am almost guaranteeing I will be in position and be the aggressor. It folds back to the original opener and they will put in the call. Now we have to play the hand post flop, which is fine as we head to a flop of 10-4-6 rainbow. Villain checks, and this is where people tend to make another mistake. If they are able to find the 3-bet, they will check back with Ace King because they have no made hand. I am the aggressor and my opponent has to keep this in mind, so I have no issue putting in a C-bet here for $150. On this dry of a board, majority of the times my opponent will have a lot of folds, especially against this size. This time, however, my opponent will find the call. We go to the turn and it comes the Ace of Hearts. Villain checks, and this is the beauty of Ace King. Sometimes when your opponent does continue, you will find an ace or a king on the turn for top pair, top kicker. I will be finding a double barrel and place out a wager for $330. My opponent thinks about it for a little bit and does eventually fold. Stop calling Ace King a drawing hand and start playing and treating it as a premium hand. Instead of a 3-bet pot with Ace King, we will be navigating a single raise pot. This will be in a lower stakes game at a 1-3 table, but the $6 straddle is on. Under the gun +1 is going to limp for $6. Over limping is not an option here with Ace King, so we will punish the limper by raising it almost 7x to $40. It folds back around to them and they will be put it in the call. We go heads up to a flop of King Jack 3 rainbow. My opponent checks and we have top pair, top kicker on a dry board. This is a simple one where we just want to build this pot as quickly as possible with such a strong made hand. I will fire out a C-bet here for $45. My opponent will be put it in the call. We head to the turn and it comes to 3 of hearts. The situation changes a bit here with the paired turn coming in, but at least the board is still rainbow. Now we should start thinking about ranges because you should ask yourself, how many 3s does your opponent have in this spot? They limped under the gun and called my big raise, so odds are they never show up here with Ace 3 offsuit or King 3 offsuit. Honestly, they only have Ace 3 of diamonds or spades and King 3 of spades. This is only 3 combinations of hands to worry about, but they still have a bunch of King X, Jack X, and maybe to get crazy with Queen 10, Ace 10, and Ace Queen as well. As you see, there are infinitely more hands to get called by that I am ahead of. After this breakdown, the best option that would generate the most money is going to be finding a double barrel on the turn. I think about my sizing and place out a bet for $140. Villain thinks about it for a couple of seconds and puts in the call. We go to the river and it comes the deuce of hearts. My opponent is going to check and this card is a blank. This is not going to improve any of our ranges at this point in the hand. Most times, players are going to be scared here and feel they cannot get called by worse, so they don't fire the triple barrel. Excuses are made such as they fold too much and what if I get raised? This is not where your thought process should go. Let's use the Brandon Sligh approach, aka be simple approach, and ask ourselves as we are here on the river, can we get called by worse? The answer is yes, because they still have a lot of King X and Jack X in their range. They may even call some random pocket pair that they were stubborn with, because yeah, this is a 1-3 game after all, right? I will confidently fire out the triple barrel for $350. This time they are not as quick to put their chips in the middle. They do tank for 30 seconds or so and finally put in a call. I turn over my premium, Ace King suited, and they are going to muck their cards. They were kind enough to let me know they had King Queen offsuit. Here's another Ace King in a different situation where finally I get to open raise it in under the gun. I will make it $15 to go. It folds to my opponent on the button and they find a massive 3-bet for 20x the blinds, making it $100 to go. It folds back around to me and we have some options here with Ace King. Due to me playing against this opponent for 20 minutes or so and seeing their sizes pre-flop in other situations, this helps me conclude it is not as big of a deal as one may think. They are a bit splashy with their chips, so now instead of calling out of position since we are about 250 big blinds deep, I would confidently make a 4-bet to $350. I did expect them to call or fold, but instead they announced they are all in. As I said before, the profile I have on them is that of a splashy player and possible well status. Luckily, they did just 3-bet the same size against me the hand before as well. I do let all of these thoughts settle in my mind and double check them to make sure I am making the right decision here with just Ace King. Ultimately, in this spot, you have to go with it as you can be ahead here, so I will put in a call. The board runs out Ace 10 Deuce Rainbow, the turn is the 9 of clubs, and the river is the Jack of spades. They turn over Ace Queen offsuit, and not being scared with Ace King pays off by winning a $2,500 pot. If you're still playing hands like Jacks and Ace King scared, you're letting the splashy players at your table realize way too much equity for free. The Low Stakes Poker Blueprint is a free guide with 100 rules for handling premium hands, applying pressure, and knowing when aggression is printing instead of punting. Scan the QR code on screen or grab it through the pinned comment for free. There are 3 mistakes winning poker players never make. In this video, I am going to break these mistakes down so you stop making them and start winning more money today. The first mistake is one of the most important ones, and it is going to be seen when I am dealt pocket aces in a 2-5 game. My opponent in low jack is going to limp for $5 and cutoff will be limping as well. I will raise it up 6x the blinds to $30. It will fold back around to the original limper. They put in a call, and so does the player in cutoff. We are 3-handed headed to a flop of 6-4-4 rainbow. This is a very good flop for aces since it is a dry board. I will only be behind to some random 4x, and majority of the times it would have to be suited. Low jack checks, and even though they are not the pre-flop aggressor, cutoff is going to donk bet for $35. If you are not familiar with what a donk bet is, it is when a player starts to put money into the pot at any point post-flop when it is out of turn. They are betting even though they were not the aggressor on the previous street, or in this case, pre-flop. With being in position and knowing I can control all the action on future streets since I am last to act, I will just put in a call. Low jack is going to fold. We are heads up going to the turn, and it comes the Queen of Spades. They do not slow down and will bet the turn for $55. This is a small bet for only about 1/3 of the pot. At this point, with the flush draw coming in, I can not only call here. Also, to give extra context about this specific opponent, they have been playing any 2 cards for the past 2 hours. Whether they have a piece of the board, such as a 6, 7-5, 7-3, 8-7, a random queen, a random flush draw, they always just continue to put money in. It does not tend to be a pure bluff, so I know it is better to raise to have my opponent call with worse. I am comfortable playing for it all due to the randomness of my opponent. I will raise in position to 175. After a couple of seconds, they will go all in. In a lot of other scenarios, aces can be no good here, but against this specific opponent, I am more than happy to put in a call. We go to the river and it comes the Queen of Hearts. The mistake is finally coming in as they turn over Queen 6 offsuit. It is going on tilt over a bad beat. Let's put this into perspective. As a winning player, I will never go on tilt in this spot. Our opponent limp called a mediocre hold'em, led the flop, bet the turn, and 3-bet jammed it with only 4 outs. They had about 9% equity against my aces. This means I will win $500 9 out of 10 times against this specific opponent, and unfortunately, 1 out of 10 times I will lose. To take the math even further, if this situation happened 100 times, I will win about 90 to 91, and my opponent will win 9 of them. This never lets you know when the 9 can come though. You are never 100% to win a hand if all the cards have not been dealt, because this is not how math works. However, if we keep putting ourselves in these positions, we will always come out a winner in the long run. Tilt does not exist in a winning poker player's world. Try your best to never be results oriented and see the brighter side of experiencing a bad beat in your great poker game. Another aspect to focus on is this is the exact player I want to play against. They may win this one hand, but I will be able to win it back slowly as the day goes on. I sometimes will win back my full buy-in very quickly depending on how the game goes. The next mistake is super important and you need to make sure you're not doing it. It will be shown when I am dealt pocket 5s on the button in this 2-5 game. Hijack is going to open 4x to $20. Pocket pairs are really good hands in position to set mine with, so I will put in a call and everyone else is going to fold. We go heads up to a flop of 5 queen deuce, 2 clubs. This is an extremely good flop, having the second best set. My opponent finds a continuation bet for about 50% of the pot, and this time I would just be putting in a call. You can sometimes raise sets in position, but with this one in particular, we would take the more passive route. We go to the turn and it comes the 9 of hearts. This brings in another flush draw. Villain will find a double barrel, but they bet less than they did on the flop, only putting on a wager of $35. This is only about 1/3 of the pot. With this bet being super small, 2 flush draws on board, and now possible straight draws, we no longer can take the passive route. We need to start building up this pot and get called by all of these draws. We will also get called by any overpairs and queen X for top pair. I am going to raise in position and make it $125 to go. My opponent puts in a call. We go to the river and it comes the 8 of spades. The mistake is finally going to come in, as only after a couple of seconds, villain donk bets and leads for $200. This is a little more than half of the pot, so she finally puts out a big bet. Let's break this down and focus on the draws we mentioned before. Flushes did not complete at all on this river, but unfortunately straight draws did complete. 7-6 suited and Jack 10 now have straights, but keep in mind it is very hard for my opponent to have 7-6 suited. For him to have it, it can only be 7-6 of clubs or hearts with the call from the turn. There are more combinations of Jack 10 due to it being an open-ended straight draw on the turn, so I do have to respect this lead here. Raising on this river would not be the best option, and I cannot fold such a strong made hand here. So I do put in a call. Here is the mistake. Donk betting for no reason is a play you will never see winning players make. She turns over ace-3 of clubs for the bluff since they missed their flush and straight draw from the flop. They figured it would be impossible to win at Showdown, which is right against my set, but this is not a reason to just fire out random bets and bluff. There is not many times in poker you get to bluff a missed ace-high flush draw, and you sure shouldn't do it by donk betting when your opponent raises your double barrel on the turn. They were afraid to check fold, and it cost them $200, almost half of a buy-in at 2-5. Please don't make this next mistake shown when I am dealt ace-10 offsuit in under the gun +1 position, playing 5-10 with a $20 straddle on. I open 2.5x to $50, and opponents in hijack and cutoff are both going to call. Everybody else folds. We are three-handed going to a flop of 10-9 deuce rainbow. I have top pair, top kicker, and should be ahead here majority of the time. The board is also extremely dry. As the pre-flop aggressor, I will go for the continuation bet and put $80 in the middle. My opponent in hijack puts in the call, and cutoff is going to be laying it down. We are heads up going to the turn, and it comes to 3 of clubs. Ace-10 is still an extremely strong hand here so far. The turn does bring in the backdoor flush draw, but besides this aspect, it is a blank card. There are still many worse hands to get called by, such as worse 10x, 9x, queen jack, and 8-7 for straight draws, and also some combo draws that now have a flush draw. I will increase my sizing on the turn, placing out a wager of $220. After a couple of seconds, they put in the call. We go to the river, and it comes to 6 of hearts. The 6 does complete some hands, but there are some drawers that may have missed too. My opponent may even have a hand as weak as king jack if they love to chase. Of course, they would always continue with king jack of clubs. Because of all these reasons, I will go for a check call line rather than putting out a bet myself. I check, and this is when we are finally going to see another mistake profitable players do not make at the tables. We never overplay top pair. My opponent places a bet of 330 in the middle, which is less than half of the pot. Let's think about ranges and focus mainly on top pairs both players have. In this exact line, I will have at best ace-10 and at worst queen-10. I would never bet jack-10 on the turn for such a big size because I am fully aware my opponent can have stronger 10x, and I may not always c-bet the flop either. My opponent, on the other hand, will have a lot more 10x than me, but once they bet against my double barrel, they should have a good enough kicker to compete against my range. They also should understand I still have pocket jacks through aces here. If my opponent is aware of this, the worst 10x they should bet is exactly ace-10. Even king-10 is a bit thin here in this configuration and based on the action post-flop. I call, and they do prove they are overplaying top here as they show queen-10 of clubs, a hand that should always check back in this scenario. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you can give a like and hit the subscribe button. I am really close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. Also, comment below your favorite parts or strategies so far. And these 4 strategies will fix what's been holding your results back. They're the core adjustments that make poker feel simpler and put you in control of your sessions. In this video, I'm going to break each one down so you can start using them today. The first strategy is going to be shown at this 5-10 game when I am dealt pocket aces and big blind. Under the gun is going to start out with a limp, and this is going to cause a lot of other players to overlimp in low jack, hijack, the button, and in small blind. I will raise it up very big here since we are deep and make it $160 to go. The original limper folds and others follow, but my opponent on the button will put in the call. Small blind is going to fold. We are heads up going to a flop of 9-3-2, 2 clubs. Very good flop as we have an overpair to the board and we can go runner for the nut flush, aka the best hand possible if 2 clubs come out. If you notice, the stack to pot ratio is low since there is already $360 in the middle. It is going to be very easy to get in the money here. There is no reason to continuation bet, aka c-bet big, so I will make it $110 to go. After a couple of seconds, my opponent is going to raise in position to $330. In this spot, you may worry about bad turns and want to get in the money now, but this is not where your thought process should go. We have a very strong hand, plus we have the ace of clubs, so even if a club comes out on the turn and they have a made flush, we can still hit a fourth club on the river. Now, this is not the only hand in my opponent's range. This is where the strategy finally comes in. You need to let aggressive players bluff. Sometimes people will have nothing here and just start raising because of the small C bet. Once again, we are at the top of our range and I want to let them put in the money bad for me. If I come over the top and they have a bluff, they can never call my bet. For all of these reasons, I will just put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 8 of spades. I check and they are going to snap jam all in for $805 and almost pot-sized wager. Easy decision here and I snap call. They asked to run it twice and I agree to. The first run out brings the 4 of spades and the second run out brings in the 3 of hearts. I show my pocket aces and they will fold their hand. This is exactly why you need to let players do the bluffing for you, especially if you are at the top of your range. The next strategy will be illustrated when I am dealt ace-king in cutoff position. This one will be simple to follow as I raise to $15 and it folds to small blind. I have played at this table for about 2 hours and this specific player has not played many hands. This time they would 3-bet, making it $50 to go. Big Blind, who I also have played with for about 2 hours, has not made any re-raises either, but they managed to come over the top with a cold 4-bet for $130. Here's the strategy. Do not pay tight players. Do you ever think we're going to be ahead here? Ace-King's an extremely good hand, but against this action, it is not a good hand anymore. When a player lets you know over a long span of time they are tight, you just have to believe them until they show you otherwise. I would gladly fold my cards and let the two tightest players at the table battle it out. We will see the next strategy when I am dealt pocket threes in hijack position. I open 3x, making it $30 to go. It folds to the button and they put in a call. It then folds to big blind and they will come along as well. We are three-handed, headed to a flop of King 6-4, 2 diamonds. Decent flop for my range as I will have the best King X here compared to my opponents since they did not 3-bet. However, I do have fourth pair on this board. Big blind checks and I could check here sometimes, but I will fire out a C-bet for $30. Sometimes both opponents will not have much here and fold. Button does lay it down, but big blind is going to be put it in the call. We go heads up to the turn and it comes the deuce of spades. My opponent checks and at first this looks like a very uninteresting turn, but from my perspective, it is a really good one. As I said before, I am going to have some extremely strong hands in my range, such as aces, kings, ace-king, king-queen, etc. By my opponent not check raising against such a small bet, we can start eliminating the top of their range, such as a set of sixes and fours majority of the time. With me having pocket threes, it is the perfect pocket pair to have because it would be very unlikely for my opponent to have 5-3 suited for the nuts. With 2 threes out, only 5-3 of spades and 5-3 of hearts are possible. Players usually refer to this as having blockers, which tends to be a more advanced technique. To keep it simple, I am just preventing my opponent from having more combinations to the nuts. With poker being a range versus range game and me blocking combinations of the nuts, the next strategy is coming in because the best of the best know when to bluff. The more your bluff makes sense, the more plus EV or expected value it will be in the long run. Pulling random bluffs out of thin air is not a winning play long term. I will fire out a bigger bet on the turn than the flop, going for a massive overbet as I make it $200 to go. Notice as soon as the chips hit the middle, my opponent is going to instantly fold. Knowing when to bluff is a skill that winning poker players use, and it separates them from everyone else. Another very important strategy will be shown when I am dealt pocket sevens in big blind position. Blinds are 5-10 and low jack will limp for $10. It folds around to small blind and they will call 2. In this spot, you can mostly play a check and take a flop, but because we are 200 big blinds effective, I do decide to raise it up 6x to $60. Villain and low jack will call, but small blind is going to fold. We go heads up to a flop of 7-6-5, 2 spades. I have top set and there is a flush draw on the board. Range wise, there is sometimes my opponent can unfortunately have the nuts, but in live poker, people limp extremely wide and can have many other hands I am ahead of. The most simple one to focus on is an 8x type hold'em or a flush draw. Most people will c-bet here, but I am not going to do that. On this wet of a board and not having a range advantage, I will start out with a check. Villain will bet in position for about 66% of the pot for $80. This is exactly what I wanted as we are finding checks to maximize EV. It is going to be much harder to play for stacks if I just triple barreled off with us being so deep. So now I am going for a check raise instead, making it $270 to go. We want to start getting paid by all the hands I mentioned earlier, and they can also have a limped over pair as well. If they have a set, it would be an easy win for us. They put in a call. We go to the turn and it comes the 2 of clubs. This will be a blank, so I will continue to fire a bet on the turn for $470. It takes a little longer this time, but Villain will still be putting in a call. We go to the river and it comes the 3 of clubs. Not the best river, but there are some positives here. First, the spade flush draw did not complete, so we are still ahead of all those hands in my opponent's range. Second, if they had an 8x hold'em, the straight did not complete on the river. Third, they are not going to call much 4x to a big check raise on the flop and big bet on the turn, unless it is exactly ace 4 of spades, king 4 of spades, and possibly queen 4 of spades. They will never just call a random 4 because if an 8 comes, they will have the bottom end of the straight instead of the top end. Ultimately, there are not many hands I lose to with this run out, but yes, at a lower frequency, I can still lose. If I were to bet, there are not many hands that are going to call me, but remember the strategy I mentioned on the flop? By checking, I can maximize my winnings by giving my opponent the opportunity to bluff off all the hands that did not get there. After this entire breakdown, the best and most plus EV decision here is to check. If they check back, it is okay, but if they do go all in, we are just at the top of our range here and have to put in a call. I check my option. They tank for 30 seconds and announce they will be all in. I snap call. They turn over ace-10 of spades for the missed flush draw. Finding similar checks will make you a much more difficult player to face at the poker table. The difference between a break-even player and a winner is knowing when to let aggressive players bluff, when to stop paying tight players, and when checking makes more money than betting. That's why I made the Low Stakes Poker Blueprint a free guide with 100 rules for the exact live low stakes spots that come up again and again. Scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the pinned comment and I'll send it to you for free. These are the only 5 strategies you need to win more. If you start using them, you'll fix what's holding your game back and win more consistently right away. In this video, I'm going to break each one down so you can start using them today. The first strategy is going to be shown when I am dealt Queen Jack offsuit in big blind. This is a 2-5 game and under the gun is going to open 4 extra blinds, making it $20 to go. 2 opponents in low jack and button will be put in a call. Small blind folds, and in this spot, Queen Jack is just good enough to continue with, but even this hand can start folding sometimes. The problem here is players tend to overcall hands such as Queen 9, Jack 9, King 8, Ace 8, Ace 5, and 6-4 offsuit. They also tend to overcall King 3 and King 4 suited as well. You may believe you have the odds, but you do not against a 3x open with multiple callers, and especially not against a 4x open with multiple callers. Also, we are going to be out of position to the entire table. You need to play less hands in big blind. Try tightening your range a bit, and you will not slowly lose money throughout all of your sessions. I will put in a call with Queen Jack since it can make a nut straight with other Broadway cards, but I must keep in mind that even if I do hit top pair, I may not have the best hand against these specific ranges. We are four-handed headed to a flop of King 9 deuce, 2 clubs. Very good flop as I am drawn to the nuts, aka the best hand possible if a 10 comes out. Not being a pre-flop aggressor, I will check and the original opener will check as well. My opponent in low jack will put out a bet in position to most of the table for about 50% of the pot or $45. Button is going to fold and there are two options here. We can take the more aggressive line with the check raise, especially with having additional backdoor equity to the second nut flush, or we can take a more passive line with a call. This time around, I will put in the call. Under the gun is going to be folding their hand. We go heads up to the turn and it comes the Jack of Hearts. It is an okay turn bringing in second pair, as sometimes I would now be ahead, but my opponent can still have top pair in their range. I check the turn and after a couple of seconds, they will be checking back. We go to the river and it comes the King of Diamonds. Very good river as now it is harder for my opponent to have trips with only two kings left in the deck. Also, in live poker, sometimes people in position will bet the flop with a strong 9, pocket 10s that did not want to 3-bet, or maybe even Jack 10 or Jack X of clubs that did not want to barrel the turn. My hand can for sure get called by worse, so it is time to fire out a bet here on the river. I do go for a smaller size this time, making it $40 to go. After a couple of seconds, they will put in the call. I turn over my Queen Jack offsuit and they will muck their cards. Very good bet on the river to get my opponent to commit some more money. The next strategy is going to be illustrated by this hand where I am dealt 7-6 suited in under the gun +1 position. This is a low frequency open from this position, so keep in mind you do not always have to play it. But this time I will open 3x for $15. It folds around to cutoff and they put in the call. Button is going to 3-bet squeeze, making it $55 to go. It folds back around to me and with their sizing, the extra money in the middle, and the player being a regular, I will put in the call with 7-6 suited. It is also because you want to play high equity hands at the poker table. This hand is very straightforward to play, and with knowing how to navigate majority of flops, I will not get into much trouble. Cutoff is going to fold. We go heads up to a flop of 7-4 deuce, 2 clubs. Keeping it simple, I have top pair with a weak kicker. I will check and my opponent is going to fire a continuation bet, aka C bet, making it $105 to go. We cannot fold yet as our hand is too good with the ability to turn trips, 2 pair, and even go runner for a straight if they check back the turn. I will put in the call. We go to the turn and it comes the 6 of hearts. Beautiful turn as my opponent will never have 5-3 or 8-5 suited in a 3-bet squeeze pot, so I essentially have the best hand here almost always. I check and villain announces they are all in for a pot size wager of $340. Nothing to think about here. I snap call. The river comes the 8 of spades and they turn over ace 10 of clubs. This is the power of playing high equity hands even in 3-bet pots out of position. This strategy is a bit of a different one where I am going to be dealt ace jack suited in small blind position. It is going to be on hijack and they will open 3x to $15. Cutoff is going to put in the call and button is going to fold. In this spot, what are your thoughts with ace jack suited? Are you thinking we should just call and take a flop because it is a very strong hand? Or is there a better option? There is a better route we can take to make sure we are now the pre-flop aggressor in this spot. Calling is the worst option here, especially with big blind still being left to act and having to play out of position to 2 opponents. Instead, let's take over the action with the next strategy and it's you have to 3-bet squeeze more. Yes, it is an obvious play to do it with ace king suited, but you cannot always just do it with the best of the best. I will 3-bet squeeze, making it $120 to go. Big blind folds and the hijack will lay it down, and cutoff follows right after. We managed to win $35 without even seeing a flop, and we didn't pay any rake either. The next strategy you need to win more is going to be shown when I am dealt king 9 suited on the button. Blinds are 5-10, and under the gun is going to open 3x to $30. It folds to me on the button, and I put in a call. Small blind folds, and big blind comes along as well. Button is the best and most profitable position to play on at the poker table. Some advantages of it include always being last to act, you can control the action, you can check back turns to realize equity, and you can apply massive pressure to opponents with or without a made hand. Because of this, try your best to play more hands on the button. Now, this does not mean you should start calling 8-5 suited or king 3 suited against an under the gun open, but try your best to play some high equity hands. 10-9, Jack 10, Queen 10, Ace 5, King 9, and King 10 suited are some hands to play here, as well as some pocket pairs for set mining. We are three-handed, headed to a flop of 5-9-7, 2 hearts. I have top pair, second best kicker, but unfortunately the possibility of making a flush does not exist. Big blind checks, and the pre-flop aggressor and under the gun would check a couple of seconds after. I do not want my two opponents to see a turn for free, as there are so many that would destroy the strength of my hand. Any 8, 6, 3, heart, or other overcards would not be fun unless it is a king, of course. I will place out a bet for $60. Big blind is going to call, and under the gun will lay it down. We are heads up going to the turn, and it comes the king of clubs. I now have taken over the aggression in this pot and have full control. Turning top 2 pair makes it even better. Villain checks, and there are now 2 flush draws on the board. Checking back here is not an option, as we want our opponent to pay for any draw they may be holding. They can have a pair plus a flush draw or a pair plus a straight draw type holdings. Sets are super unlikely without them check raising on this wet of a flop. I did bet big on the flop, but now it is time to size up even more on the turn. I would go for an overbet for about 150% of the pot, making it $300 to go. Villain does tank for 30 seconds to a minute, but finally they come along with a call. We go to the river, and it comes the 6 of clubs. My opponent checks, and with the backdoor flush draw completing, it is a bad river. Also, there is a 4-liner to a straight, and if you are not familiar with that, it is when one card in any player's hand can make a straight. In this case, any 8 will make a straight. So for these 2 reasons, there is no way I am getting called by worse. So this is just an easy check back to get to showdown. They turn over king 3 of hearts for the pair plus a flush draw I talked about. The bet size on the turn was perfect to get the maximum from them. I am dealt a high equity hand again, but this time that is not the strategy, as I have 6-5 suited and under the gun +1 position. This time, pay attention to the stack depths, as now since we are deeper, we can open 6-5 suited a bit more. Do not always open it though. I make it $15 to go. We will have 2 callers in low jack and cutoff. Button folds and small blind, who I am 250 big blinds or so effective with, is going to 3-bet squeeze, making it $50 to go. Being in position to them, I would gladly put in a call for only $35 more. This causes the famous waterfall effect, as both players to my left come along too. We are 4-handed going to a flop of 5-Jack-6, 2 clubs. Let's break down ranges here, as it is extremely important as we are getting into the strategy. In this spot, my opponents will never have Jack-6 or Jack-5 suited, as people do not flat this mediocre of a hold'em to an open against under the gun, let alone call a 3-bet squeeze. Pocket 6s and 5s are possible, but with me already having 2 pair, it means there is only one combination of cards left for them. For sixes, it would be six of diamonds and hearts. For fives, it would be five of hearts and clubs. I will also unfortunately be drawing dead to pocket jacks automatically here, but there is only three combinations of that. Overall, to be in a spot where you are only behind to five combinations of hands is pretty good. There are so many other hands I am ahead of, including ace jack, king jack, queen jack, pocket queens, kings, aces, and also flush draws. Small blind will fire out a C bet for 50% of the pot, making it $105 to go. There are a lot of action killers on the turn, two players behind me, and a lot of hands that I want to put more money in here, as I mentioned before. Here's the strategy. Don't slow play when you have a strong made hand, especially at low stakes. People get into money bad so often that we maximize our profitability by building the pot as quickly as possible. I am going to do that here as I find a massive raise in position to $375. Both players to my left fold, but the three better is going to be coming along with the call. We go to the turn and it comes the deuce of diamonds. They would never have 4-3 suited here, so this is an amazing turn. There is $955 in the middle, and I have $881 behind. Yes, this is almost two buy-ins technically, but once they check, I will be going all in. This is not a 3-street hand, but it is one that wants to maximize winnings across 2 streets. For some reason, however, the 3-better is going to do the work for me as they put in a donk bet for $500. If you are not familiar with it, a donk bet is when a player who was not the aggressor on the previous street decides to place a bet. Since I raised on the flop, I have taken over the aggression from the 3-better, so they should just check the turn. Do not be this player just donk betting for no reason. With their big sizing, it is best to raise it up, so I announce that I am all in. After asking for a count, they put in a call. The river comes the 8 of diamonds. I turn over my 2 pair and they will mark their cards. This is the exact reason why you should always fast play your hands. If you're enjoying the video so far, I would appreciate if you can give a like and hit the subscribe button. I am really close to hitting 10,000 subscribers. Also, comment below your favorite parts or strategies so far. These 3 live poker strategies will make you a winner. They're the same strategies I use every session to stay disciplined, win more consistently, and avoid common traps. In this video, I'm going to break each one down so you can start using them at the tables today. The first strategy is going to be a simple one, and it would be illustrated during this 5-10 game with a $20 straddle on. I am dealt 9-6 offsuit in the straddle. It folds around the small blind and they will limp. Big blind follows them with a limp as well, and with such a weak holding, there is no point in raising it up here. I can check my option and see the flop in position to both of my opponents. We are 3-handed headed to a flop of 8-5 king, 2 spades. Now we are about to see the strategy in action because this is a spot where people make the most mistakes. Remember, there were no raises pre-flop in this pot. Do you know what this means? This means that ranges are infinite in this spot for the limpers. In live poker, small blind can have anything from aces to 7 deuce offsuit. Big blind should raise the limp with their stronger hands such as aces, kings, queens, etc., since they are not the original limper. This would mean that I am now able to eliminate top of the range hands for the big blind, but I cannot eliminate any hands in the range of small blind. This is how you should be able to break down ranges in this spot, because in poker, you should never go broke in a limped pot. Someone is going to lose more money in this spot than they're supposed to if they were aware of ranges in this configuration. Small blind is going to check, and the villain in big blind is going to make a bet for $30, 50% of the pot. This is an easy decision here, having position, and I would have the nuts, aka the best hand possible if I were to turn a 7. I put in the call, and small blind is going to fold. We go heads up to the turn, and it comes the best card in the deck for my hand, the Seven of Hearts. Big blind is going to continue with a double barrel and size up on the turn, making it $80 to go, about 66% of the pot. There are two things I want you to focus on in this spot. Remember, big blind's range is essentially capped. However, mine is less capped. Do you know the reason why? It is because I had the option to check and take a free flop. This is a key factor making my range wider, and big blind should worry about this as I am putting in a raise in position, making it $250 to go. I must get called by all of their random two pairs, sets, and also they may have a combo draw such as 7-6 of spades and so on. After a couple of seconds, they are going to put in the call. We go to the river and it comes the 10 of clubs. Villain is going to check, and I still have the best hand almost always. It is time to get paid on the river, and I fire out another bet for $400. Villain is going to snap call, and they confidently turn over their 8-5 offsuit as I turn over the straight to take down the pot. I do not like their river call because once again my range is extremely wide, and I will have better two pairs than them in this line, along with sets and some straights. 8-5 is pretty much bottom two pair here, and it's just not a good enough hand to call. They torch $400 or 40 big blinds on the river in a spot where they are rarely ever going to win. The next strategy is going to be maximizing EV with premiums. This is going to be a unique spot due to the run out and aggression my opponent shows post flop. Villain in small blind starts out with a limp for $10. I am going to raise it up to $30 and they will be calling. We go heads up to a flop of Queen 10-4 Rainbow. Beautiful flop so far as I have an overpair to the board, so I want to build this pot as quickly as possible. Villain is going to check and I will find a C bet, aka continuation bet, for $30. My opponent has other plans as they are putting in the check raise for almost 4x my bet, making it $110 to go. This is an easy decision and I will put in the call. We go to the turn and it comes the 6 of hearts, making it a rainbow board. It is a very good turn as this is pretty much a blank majority of the times. Villain is going to continue showing strength by making an almost pot-sized bet for $250. It is a bit scary, but I still cannot go anywhere yet, especially being in position, controlling the river action. So I will put in a call. We go to a very interesting river as it comes the 6 of diamond. My opponent is going to fire out the final barrel on the river and bets $400 or 50% of the pot. I am immediately in love with the river card and their sizing as I know where this hand is headed. Now, let's think about my opponent's range and break it down. They limp called pre-flop and check raised barreled off. What hands will do this? They never have pocket queens as they would have re-raised me pre-flop with it. 10s are possible sometimes, but 4s are more likely. They can also have random bluffs, but most importantly, they can have a type of hand that hates seeing the turn card pair on the river. This exact hand would be two pair. Queen 10, Queen 4, and 10-4 are all more likely to be in their range than boats. They can also have a scared ace queen that did not want to commit too much money pre, or maybe king queen. Yes, I know I have two kings in my hand, but it is still possible, or maybe even queen jack. Some of these hands would find a size down on the river. After this full breakdown, I now know I must maximize my EV with pocket kings by making a bold play here. Calling is not going to be the best option based on this range breakdown. Can I jam into a boat? Yes, but how about all the other times I jam and get called by all the other worst hands that make up the majority of Villain's range? I announced that I am all in for $1,175 and Villain goes into the tank. I know I have the best hand at this point, and after 2 minutes, they finally put in a call. I turn over my pocket kings and they will muck their cards. This is the thought process you must have and these are the spots you must find to truly maximize when you have a premium hand. The next hand, I would be dealt pocket kings again, but we would be in a different situation. I am in under the gun position and will open 3x to $30. Villain in under the gun +1, who is short stacked, puts in the call. It folds all the way to big blind and they come along as well. We go 3 ways through a flop of Jack 4-5 rainbow. Immediately in this spot, I am thinking one thing. I must do my best to stack the short stack, especially with this SPR, aka stack to pot ratio. Big blind is going to check, and I will fire out a C bet for $30. Villain and under the gun +1 will call, and big blind calls too. We go to the turn, and it comes the 6 of spades. Big blind is going to check. The turn looks scary because there are straights that have completed, such as 8-7 suited and offsuit, 7-3 suited, and 3 deuce suited. These hands could be in their range, but if they do have it, I will for sure hear from either player on the turn with a raise. Because of that reason, I am still happy to find a double barrel here to still get called by all Jack X holdings, straight draws, and flush draws. I size up on the turn and put out a bet of $120. Under the gun +1 is going to call and big blind is going to fold. Perfect spot so far, and way to go by taking the highest EV line that would generate me the most winnings long term. We are heads up going to the river, and it comes the 4 of hearts. This card does not change much as it's very hard for them to river trips, so I would gladly announce I am all in to the dealer. My opponent will snap call and I turn over my pocket kings and they will muck their cards. We maximize our winnings by finding the triple barrel to win all of the short stacks money and realize our hand was more than good enough to keep building the pot on a scary turn. This next strategy is one that I see even well-seasoned pros struggle to deal with. It involves the mindset we have at the table, and we will see it when I am dealt King 10 suited in cutoff position. Villain in hijack position raises 3x of $15. I decide to flat cutoff with King 10 suited this time instead of finding a 3-bet. It folds to big blind, and they will be calling too. We are 3-handed going to a flop of 7 Queen 4, 2 diamonds. Extremely good flop as I am drawn to the second nuts, the king high flush. I also have some backdoor equity to straights and an overcard as well. Big blind checks and the original opener places a C bet for $35, about 75% of the pot. I am going to put in a call and big blind lays it down. We go heads up to the turn and it comes the 6 of diamonds giving me the king high flush. What could possibly go wrong here? My opponent checks and it is time for me to take over the betting. I think about my sizing and fire out a big bet as I want to make sure my river all in is not too much of an overbet. I place out a wager of $100. They will put in a call. We go to the river and it comes the jack of clubs. The board does not pair, so I am looking pretty good here. After a couple of seconds, villain puts out a donk bet for $200. Well, this is a bit weird, but I am not complaining as there is just so many hands in my opponent's range that I want to stack. I cannot leave their $193 just sitting there, so I am more than happy to announce I am all in with the king high flush. They snap call, and this is where the strategy comes in. You must understand bad beats are part of the game. I played the hand to the best of my ability, knowing I must go all in, but unfortunately, they turn over ace queen of diamonds. Everyone, including me, deals with bad beats, but it is how you carry yourself after them that determines if you have what it takes to be profitable in this game.